Right, good luck, guys. It'll be great. And I'll see you maybe the other end. Take care.
A very good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session of the CCA Convention Roundtable today. Warm welcome to everybody to another virtual seminar, virtual online meeting that we all have, and I'm sure we will all feel much better if we would do these sessions in a face-to-face session. Unfortunately, but at the same time, very pleased to be able to host today this session online and allow everybody to have a good discussion about a very exciting topic. Now, before I go and talk about all of that, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Peter Lovren, work with Capita, and I've spent probably absolutely the greatest part of my career in customer service and customer experience. When I started, that wasn't called customer experience, we still talk about customer services. And I'm really pleased, like I said, to do a bit of predictions today and a discussion around that, which I'm not going to do on my own, but I'm really pleased to introduce two other panel members who are going to help us in seeing if we can predict the future in the world of customer experience. So let me first introduce you to both Federico De Valles and Stu Dorman. Federico, can I ask you to introduce yourself and for today?
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to work with you. Hi, everyone. I'm Federico De Valles, ICT industry analyst with Frost & Sullivan CX team. Frost & Sullivan is a research and consulting firm based in Santa Clara, California. I look after the research projects covering the European CCAS and CX outsourcing services market. We do some market analysis around the market trends, market drivers, restraint, market size, benchmarking, between the different companies in the industry. And again, thank you for the invitation.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Federico. And we understood that you're joining us from the other side of the world. Is that correct?
Sorry, yes, I'm based in Buenos Aires, in Argentina. It is a global world, right? The headquarters of Frost & Sullivan are in California. I'm working from Buenos Aires, but still I'm working for the London office. So I think that's how we call it a real globalized world, right? We're everywhere.
So it's a warm good morning to you in this specific case. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm still with my coffee. I hope that's not a problem. It's a little bit early here. But all right, it's important to wake up early.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Federico. We'll come back to you in a minute. Stu, good afternoon to you. I think we're on the same continent.
We're definitely in the same time zone. Yeah, thank you, Peter. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here today. My name's Stuart Dorman. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Sabio, and I spend most of my time really thinking about how innovation and technology are going to impact the world of customer experience. I do that, for Sabio and speak to a lot of our clients about it. So yeah, really looking forward to the discussion this afternoon.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, Stu. Good. So before we go into the topic, just a bit of household, how we're going to run the session. Like I said, we'll start with a presentation by Federico, who has an informed view, like I said, about what the future is going to be like, what the current trends are. So we'll go through that. And then I hope that we can go through as many challenging questions and comments and facts as possible in the next small hour. But at the same time, everybody in the audience is obviously extremely welcome to put questions in the Q&A or comments or challenges. I can see them on my screen. I'll do my utmost to bring them into the discussion as well. So please, at any time, if you strongly agree, strongly disagree, or want to hear more about the topic, I'll discuss a bit more, just put it in the chat and we'll, like I said, we'll bring it into the discussion for today as well. We might do a little poll, so make sure you keep your hands on the buttons as well, but let's see how the discussion evolves. That's the plan for today. Like I said, we'll be done before 3 o'clock, so that's from a timing perspective how we will run today. Good. On to the predictions, and I'm sure we all have had many discussions about the impact of COVID-19 on our business, on our lives over the last years. I'm sure we've had a lot of potentially issues, inconvenience, or maybe even people enjoying the lack of travel. It has all, I'm not saying anything new, that it had a big impact in our life. In the session today, we're not going to look back. We're not going to see what the impact was, but we're going to, like I said, trying to predict what this means for customer experience in a post-pandemic world. That is not to say that we would believe that the post-pandemic world is already here. We constantly talk about the back to normal. And the first question is obviously, what is that new normal? For the UK, for those who live in the UK, hopefully at the end of July, the last restrictions will be lifted as well. And politicians talk about it back to normal. What is that new normal? and what does it mean for our customers? What experience are they looking for? Is it exactly the same? Have they picked up new habits, new expectations from all that we have gone through in the last, let's say, 15 months? So it's a prediction, and I think that is a very exciting topic to debate. Now, on that topic, Federico, can I ask you to share some of the slides that you have prepared and some of the research that you have done to see if there's anything that we can talk about?
Sure. Can everyone see my screen, I guess? So, in the last year, we were surrounded by the uncertainty of created by COVID, and we really didn't know what was going to happen. Today, the picture is a little bit more, let's say, clear, and I want to dig deeper in that, what we're expecting for the future, what we think CX in a post-pandemic future will be like. But first, let's take a very quick look on where the European contact center market stands today. I mean, the European contact center market, or CX market, continues to expand steadily. Besides that, lockdowns have forced companies to implement new sales and customer service strategies, hugely increasing demand for technological solutions. Most European businesses have developed a solid understanding of the benefits of improving the customer experience. Also, cloud technology has revolutionized the delivery of CX functionality. Businesses have been steadily migrating to the cloud to improve their contact centers. There are many factors driving this migration. One of them is implementation of remote workforce models, also the higher reliability and scalability they bring. Today, the European contact center industry is being disrupted and transformed as customer interactions shift quickly from traditional channels to digital channels, and as the nature of the customer interactions continues to evolve during and in the aftermath of the pandemic, companies in the contact center space are quickly adopting new technologies to maximize value for their customers. The market has also experienced a shift to multi-tenancy. Multi-tenant solutions tend to be more responsive, stable, and better suited to rapid scaling, while improving affordability and resource utilization. And this last thing is particularly important in Europe, given the large number of small and medium-sized contact centers. A last point I want to bring refers to the recovery from the pandemic. Even though the commencement and speed up of vaccination program, strong rebounds in consumer demand, and that service sector recovery is showing early promise, there are still multiple fresh outbreaks and lockdowns extensions, and this is likely going to push full recovery beyond 2021. To better explain where the market stands today, I want to show you some outcomes from Frost & Sullivan's European Decision Makers Survey. Our data points out the key digital transformation objectives that have been prioritized as a result of the pandemic. And these are adapt to new workforce modes, enhance e-commerce capabilities, and improve CX. We found that improving customer experience and satisfaction is a top priority for most companies in the region, even in terms of the pandemic, or let's say in this way, especially in pandemic times. But what are the expectations for the future? What are European decision makers projecting and thinking will happen? First, we asked these business leaders, what will their organization focus on over the next 2 years after the pandemic? And the majority responded that organizational priorities are digital channels and new technologies. The shift to the digital space is nothing new for us, but there is a clear acceleration in the number of customer journeys, or at least parts of the customer chain or journeys that occur on digital channels. I think that success stories like Amazon, Twitter, Netflix that have placed digital customer journeys at the core of their business strategy is pushing other large corporations and even middle-sized companies to follow the same path. This slide shows the expectation of business leaders about the rate of agents working from home. The majority of businesses will have more than 50% of their workforce working from home next year. As with all businesses, contact centers have faced unprecedented obstacles this past year. With remote work, peer support has been partially lost. Managers can't walk around to see how agents are performing, and remote training has proven difficult without the right technologies on hand. Having agents deal with sensitive data when they work from home without the security measures has been particularly problematic as well. And of course, creating and managing COVID-19 protocols has been challenging for those needed to be on site. But if we look at the bright side of things, generally speaking, remote workers are performing better. Attrition rates are declining or maybe declining. And remote requires also a higher level of security, which in the end is driving the demand for better processes and new technologies. So what else can we expect for the future? I will now explain or present some projections we have at Frost & Sullivan. One is this idea of preparing your contact center for whatever happens next. No? The COVID-19 crisis is expected to leave a strong and almost permanent impact on how employees and employers perceive remote work. I think that the stigma of working from home is gone for good, and hybrid workplaces will be the expected normal. We think that a hybrid workplace is not only an arrangement or a model where employees come to the office occasionally and complete, for example, the rest of the tasks by working from home, but it's also this idea that offices will be no longer mere productivity centers. Instead, they will serve as sites for employee engagement, collaboration, and relationship building. The office or even the contact center will be the space where we interact with colleagues, where we leave our individual and family space to connect with people from work. The hybrid workplace is also granting some benefits, let's say, to an ever-growing remote workforce. It's reducing operational cost, it's helping employees economically by reducing their commuting cost, and it's increasing their productivity. And I think that in relation to this last point, at least at Frost & Sullivan, we believe that remote work will be marked by its productivity and efficiency. Employees will gain flexibility, they will gain also time savings and work-life integration, but also high personal KPIs and efficiency expectations. Individual KPIs might be the way businesses will have to control employees. Hybrid work will also require seamless technology enablement in 2 locations. So, for example, offices will include more meeting rooms and collaborative spaces. Businesses will also require proper workforce optimization or intraday management tools. Managers will have to incorporate certain degree of flexibility to organizations, and remote agents will need easy to use enterprise-grade tools, but all must be integrated into one. And these hybrid models also mean that the recruitment process will completely change and that the typical contact center agent will also be different. We're expecting better qualified, cross-skilled agents, let's say trained to be effective rather than efficient. In terms of adapting your business processes, COVID-19 has shortened decision cycles, and we expect this to remain after the pandemic. Before, CX-related decisions were mostly made based on abundant insights and performance metrics, but emergency forced managers to take quick decisions without enough information. So CX departments learned that short decision cycles are necessary to better dodge certain market fluctuations. Today, having the ability to take and implement decisions quickly is mission critical for all businesses, regardless of their size and location. Also, we expect further automation, higher demand for self-service solution, and further acceleration of the cloud. Frost & Sullivan survey found out that 80% of CX applications are expected to be in the cloud by 2023. The higher adoption of these technologies is related to a change in our perception of the meaning of business continuity. Until recently, most companies thought of business continuity as strictly an IT initiative to ensure data centers and critical operations would survive a service interruption. Today, it means much more than that. The goal is to enable work from anywhere, so that internal and external operations can continue without interruption, regardless of what's going on, for example, in the outside world. The COVID-19 pandemic is probably the most evident example of why business continuity is so important, but we learn that weather events, travel alerts, or even social movements can all upset the normal course of business. So business continuity is not anymore about foreseeing that something can be wrong, but rather the idea of having an enough robust and flexible organization that can deal with whatever happens. Also, that security and network reliability will become the most critical factors in delivering excellent CX. I mean, companies will need to re-engineer most CX processes, but this re-engineering won't be about controlling individual agents working from home, but for example, ensuring security to the end customer somehow, for example, through automation of payments or by taking payments out of agents working from home. Also, that because every middle and big-sized company has invested in CX at some point in the last month, and when I say this, I refer to, a new CCA solution or analytics or chatbots or intraday management or video channels, because this investment is already made, they will have to complement it with further technological deployments or directly by transforming their customer service organizational processes to maximize investment and close the loop. Almost every company will necessarily implement a defined CX strategy for automation and technology. Another point to consider is that contact centers will be more prepared for sudden volume changes through the consolidation of AI and RPA-powered tools. Probably you all experienced extreme volume fluctuations last year with some difficulties in sustaining or ensuring the delivery of proper CX. As a small warning here, customers will not tolerate any more outdated technology or poor CX even during critical moments. So we will necessarily have to focus on removing friction in customer journeys and will be or should be more prepared for the emergence of unexpected externalities. The COVID-19 has accelerated a shift to digital. While I think that some shopper habits may get back to normality, many will become even more mixed with digital. And I think an important point to consider is that digital activities are easier to record, to capture and measure than live physical interactions. And this is creating huge opportunities for businesses to get deeper, richer, and complex information about their customers, about their brand and the market. And the emergence of digital customer journeys analytics tools is providing businesses the opportunity to get a complete view of all customer interactions across mobile and web, so that they can create frictionless and enhanced digital customer journeys. Finally, and with this I will close, the increase in the number of smartphones and other connected cameras, devices with cameras, and millennials growing as a consumer segment and lockdowns experiences that force us to use, for example, collaboration tools just like this. I think it's increasing or driving the demand for visual communication, and that this will increase rapidly. Rich visual engagement and content sharing, for example, in tools like screen sharing or co-browsing or video chat, are progressively complementing or replacing traditional audio and chat-only interactions, and we are seeing a very promising future for this visual segment in contact centers over the next 5 to 10 years. I think that we can say that the only certainty today is uncertainty, right? But organizations can be ready for a period like this if they establish, for example, clear objectives. This means ensuring CX no matter what happens. If they incorporate the adequate technologies, such as migrating to the cloud, if they automate processes, if they implement proper KPIs to agents and innovative training methods that relate well to new workforce models, if they keep the relationship with technology partners, such as integrators, such as contact center solution vendors and outsourcers, and understand that flexibility and hybrid models, in every sense I mean hybrid, are here to stay and embrace. Thank you.
Excellent. That is very interesting, Federico. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And also, let me applaud you on being very brave of predicting the future. I mean, there's always people who surely have a different opinion about what the future will look like, and that's actually my hope for the next, let's say, half an hour as well, that there's some opposing views. I mean, I think a lot of things that you touched upon have been part of our discussion. What does it mean for working from home and for employees, but also yeah, a definite increase in reliability of technology, use of technology. And Stuart, I mean, I hope you share my view that this was very interesting research. Do you have a similar view, similar experience as well, that technology will indeed play a different role going forward in defining and delivering a customer experience?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, one of the things that we've seen over the last nearly 18 months now, certainly last year, with since the start of the pandemic, is this great digital acceleration, this massive change in behaviours, in the way that we all communicate with each other, as we're doing now, the way that we communicate with our friends and family, and obviously the way we communicate with organisations. And there's no doubt that's here to stay. And the way I kind of think of it, almost as if it's the classic kind of adoption curve. If you've got your innovators and your early adopters, people like me, people probably like you, a lot of people here that will be really, really up for embracing digital channels and engaging with organisations in new ways. And at the other end of the curve, you've got your laggards or your late adopters, and we all know who they are as well, maybe our parents or grandparents or whatever. And they were the people that were sort of sticking to the old ways of doing things, picking up the phone, going to the shop on the high street. Now they have been forced to engage in digital channels. They've had to do that over the last year or so. So, and in doing so, they've had this crash course in digital, technology, and largely speaking, it's worked really well. So, they're the people I think that really are going to, shift their behaviour and change And equally, organisations that sat behind that and are now having to force to cater for those people that were the early adopters and the innovators, and that they're having to, you know, catch up and engage with people through digital channels. So yeah, there's no doubt that it's changed, and I think we'll just continue to see this acceleration even as we go back to normal.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Stuart. If I stay with you for a minute, so automation, self-service, new channels, is that actually, in your view, really improving the customer experience? Or is it, and let me just be slightly provocative here, is it just a way of saving costs in the future, making it more, I don't know, consistent, for lack of a better word?
Yeah.
So is it truly all the opportunities that we have, especially if we get that vast majority that you talk about on the digital roadmap, will it definitely improve the customer experience, or is it just a better way of saving cost?
I think it's both, really. I mean, you know, there's no doubt that lots of simple transactional types of inquiries that we all have when we engage with an organisation are quite often better served through, you know, digital channels or through what we call automation. And I think some of the newer technologies that we're seeing now, AI, you know, is a classic one that I'm sure we've all heard a ton about over the last 12, 24 months. For me, it just creates a much more friendly user interface, a conversational user interface, which actually makes it easier for customers that aren't so skilled or, you know, in digital channels to be able to solve their problem quickly without the need to speak to a human. But is that service, you know, if I'm transacting with someone, if I'm getting my balance, is that true service? Probably not. You know, true service for me is creating a wrapper around that. And often that will involve a human and delivering a value add, you know, allowing a customer that maybe needs a bit of reassurance or needs a bit of a service wrapped around it. They need the expertise of the person to speak to understand and solve their problem. That really, for me, is where true service sits. And if you can start to take away the transactions, the simple stuff, and allow humans to focus on the service, the real value add stuff, then I think that's the role that automation, digital channels, AI will play in the future. And I don't think it's binary either. It's not either digital or human. What we really need to think about is ways in which we can leverage those technologies, which more often than not will be the initial touch point that the customer has to start their journey, and then seamlessly bring in a human, you know, blended into that journey, whether that be through, you know, starting with a chatbot or a voice bot, or maybe through a screen, seamlessly bringing the human in to deliver that extra service wrap over and above digital. And it's the blend of those together, I think, that's the right, you know, approach for organisations that are looking to embrace this.
I definitely agree about the balance, and I personally, but I'm probably not a youngster in this day and age, but I'm definitely one of those individuals. If I have a real issue, I like to speak to a human being. So I'm always a little bit concerned if you talk about a fully automated world, a fully automated customer interaction. I mean, if we go back to Frederic, I mean, what's your view on this? Do you think we're trending towards a fully automated or much larger scale automated customer interaction in the future, and indeed will that improve the customer experience, or will people indeed, like we just said, stay always very keen to speak to a warm voice?
Well, we're definitely seeing more and more customer interactions that are completed, for example, resolved from start to completion by a chatbot. But our numbers tell us that, one, we are far from a fully automated scenario. I'm working right now on Frost & Sullivan's European CX outsourcing research, and we're asking the same question, right, about the percentage of interactions completely resolved by a chatbot. And although I don't have yet a definitive number, in most cases, outsourcers are providing or one-digit values, or maybe, depending on the company, something in between 22%, 20%. These numbers will probably increase. I mean, there is some consensus that they will increase, but we are not there yet. But of course, there is some consensus that we will go to a further automated scenario. I think also that there are other types of automated processes that we can also expect to increase over the next years around intraday management, agent recommendation engines, routing systems by ABR. Yet for me, the human element is still vital and will continue to be like this in the future. Again, data shows that customers prefer to solve urgent issues by calling for support rather than use other channels. So I don't think that the human element will disappear. In times of high anxiety, customers will call or prefer to speak with a human agent. And I think there's still room in the future for human live interactions and even for mistakes in an undoubtedly highly automated scenario.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Let me just quickly pause our discussion there and point everybody in the audience at our Q&A. Again, there's a chat possibility. So if I don't ask the questions or if the topic doesn't come up that you'd like to see us being discussed, please put it in the chat bot and not the chat bot, sorry, the chat. We're talking about the chat bot, but this is not a automated chat. We will actually discuss it live here in this session. So please do that. And to get us all actively involved in discussion, maybe it's nice to do a short poll and ask everybody in the audience to see what their opinion is on that similar question. Here you go. In your opinion, will customer service be fully automated in the future? So in your opinion, will it all be automated in the future? Yes or no? And please vote what your view is. It's an interesting question, obviously, while you all click on your preferred choice. I mean, this is a discussion topic that is, I think, already going on for a couple of years, and I think we can all agree that the pandemic outbreak last year has clearly changed our views, or I mean, the customer behavior as well. So I'm really interested to see what the outcome of this poll is. There you go. Oh, very clear.
That's pretty.
That's a very clear.
There is consensus.
Yeah, I know, it's interesting that a lot of the hype, if you like, around particularly AI, you know, there's been such a lot of information about it, a lot of press about it, and a lot of the tech vendors got very excited about what the possibilities of AI are, and I think that drove a lot of this, this consensus, if you like, or this hype around customer service being one of the first sectors to be fully automated. But the reality is, there's a really, really strong place and a great business case for that technology, but completely automating it, no, I don't think so.
Excellent. Good. Okay. Excellent. Thanks for that, and thanks audience for your clear view. So I got a question. Let me just quickly go there. Chat is increasing in the future. We've got a question from James. For Federico mentioned that chat is increasing in the future. Are there examples of companies who have used that video chat and improved the customer experience output? Okay. Federico, can we start with you on that question?
Yes, sure. Well, definitely chat is more used right now in the contact center, but still, I would say voice is a prime channel and will continue to be like this over the next 10 to 15 years. The good thing of chats is that it enables to handle larger volumes of inbound interactions and larger volumes of interactions in general, and that sometimes, what companies are telling us is that they understand that end customers or end users, they prefer to chat. They don't want to speak if there's no urgent issue, and that it's improving customer experience. Yet, I don't think that Prime will be left aside for the next years, and I think that chats so far should be a complementary channel, which is necessary, especially, for example, when we are going to a more, let's say, digital world, when digital is becoming a more important part or a more important scenario of customer journeys. And there is some kind of like mix between this idea of chat through chatbots or even through an agent by those tools embedded into a website or into a mobile app. And I think that there is a huge opportunities for companies there to improve their customer experience, to create a new channel to communicate with customers, and customers really appreciate that. But I'm not seeing, at least in the next years, any kind of replacement of chat over voice as a main customer channel, at least in Europe.
Yeah. And if we zoom in specifically on the video chat, so clearly.
Oh, video. Sorry. I thought you were speaking about chat, not video chat. Well, definitely what we are seeing right now, there is a rise of visual engagement interactions. And particularly with COVID, there was a huge, massive increase of the use of video chat. For example, I was speaking with a couple of vendors, and they told me that NHS was implementing video chat, to facilitate, for example, making some appointments or even connecting doctors with the citizens. So we're seeing with the patient, and we're seeing a higher use of any kind of visual communication. And for the first time, we're seeing that the introduction of visual engagement tools, and with visual engagement, again, I refer to video chat. I refer to other kind of visual interactions like co-browsing or screen sharing. I'm not sure if everyone knows what that means, but co-browsing basically is the ability to share your screen, your browser that is of your computer or even your mobile app with an agent. So the agent can see exactly what's happening in your screen, and the agent can support you with any technical or any customer service need. We're seeing a much higher use also even of screen annotation, the ability of, for example, an agent being able to annotate something in the customer screen, and that's helping a lot, CX processes. And we're expecting a higher integration of, for example, of these type of tools in contact center solutions. I know of many major players, which I'm not sure if I can name here right now, but many major players in the European market that are actually acquiring this type of solutions or integrating their solution with this type of capabilities to offer this to their customers. Especially we're seeing a higher growth in the financial services sector of this type of video chat. And yes, I think we all agree that we'll see higher use of visual technologies in the future.
Thank you. Stu, do you have any particular views on that from a technology point of view? Do we see that video chat is used a lot in the UK? Or
no, I'd agree with, I totally agree with Frederica. I think we need to broaden our thinking about video chat really beyond, us communicating and being able to see each other. Because one of the things that we've learned, particularly over the last year, is the power of being able to communicate with pictures as well as with our voices. And, we can share content as we've done now with the presentation, and a picture paints 1,000 words. And, voice is incredibly hard to explain to a customer, the complexities of a product or, the different options that they have around a different service. Maybe it's a bit of insurance, maybe it's a mobile phone contract or something like that. Really hard to do that just using your voice. If you can suddenly bring an image up and talk the customer through it, immediately it becomes much more powerful, it becomes faster, the customer understands more and first contact resolution rates go up, etc. So I agree with Frederica. I think that's where we should think about video in the context of customer service. We don't always need to, and we don't always want to see the person that we're speaking to if it's completely anonymous and we've never met them before. But them being able to share their screens with us is incredibly powerful. So I think that's where we're going to see the development of this technology going forward.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, James, for the question. I hope that helps you. Let me move on to the next topic in CX predictions. We talked about technology and which direction that could go. If we talk about the customers, so everybody's seen that they have been exposed to more digital channels as a need, and probably that growth to change as well. We've been open to a lot of new things in normal life: face mask, queuing, 1.5 meter distance, which now seem all quite normal, if we're really honest, right? Still might feel a bit awkward, but it's quite a normal part of our common life. In the customer experience arena and the customer expectations, what do I expect from a brand to deliver? How do I want to be treated? I mean, that is a constant, let's say, changing topic as well. Now, if you purely look at that customer expectation, how do I want to be serviced by a brand? What does it mean for me? Not purely technology, but simply, is there a different level of expectations? Is there a different level of customer experience desired, let's say, over the next 24 months? Right. Stuart, Frederic, anyone wants to go first on this one? Open question.
Yeah, happy to go first. I think one of the maybe the mistakes, if you like, that we've made as an industry over the last 2 or 3 years is this illusion, if you like, or this desire to offer a customer any channel at any time to do any task, and this whole omni-channel dream that everyone's been pursuing. And I personally don't think that's right. I think what we need to think about is the power of each of the different types of communication tools that we have at our disposal to communicate with customers. So as an example, messaging, it doesn't really matter whether it's WhatsApp or WeChat or, iMessage or, whatever it is, any sort of chat tool. The fact is it's an asynchronous channel, and there are clearly benefits there. It allows customers to communicate at their own pace. We can deliver information to them. So it's really powerful at doing some things, but it's not very powerful at doing other things. If the customer wants to have a conversation, probe, ask a few questions, it's actually quite laborious typing all these things out, particularly on a mobile phone. So then voice becomes a better channel to do that. And as we just talked about, adding visual communications and video to some context, that's another set of capabilities. So I think what we need to think about is designing experiences for customers that allow them to, have access to those channels, but use them at different points in their journey or use them for different tasks that they're looking to solve. And really the art of it is just making sure that we deliver a consistent experience and we provide the customers with those tools to use based on what they want to do, and just deliver an appropriate level of service off the back of it. So making sure that we're there, making sure that the journey from the channel, from the touch point through to the human is seamless, making sure that the human that's dealing with the interaction has information at their fingertips to solve the problem. So for me, expectations for customers are really just, I want good service, but I don't necessarily need all these different channels, WhatsApp and everything else. I just need to, maybe send you a message if it's a quick inquiry, or maybe if I've got something that I really want to speak about, I need to pick up the phone and know that it's answered straight away. Or maybe if you want to share something with me, you can switch on a digital channel and walk me through, a product, a complex product. So for me, that's what we need to think about delivering as organizations.
And Frederick, if I go to you, if I just add on to that question, the topic of personalization. So clearly customers always feel that they need to be treated as personal as possible, but at the same time we quickly touch upon the boundary of privacy. So if I just, one of my personal examples, if I get in my car with my mobile phone on me and then they connect automatically, and my phone will recognize that in the car and predict where I'm going based on my earlier travels. I'm sure many of us have had that in the past. I get in the car and that will tell me I'm driving to this location where I normally on Saturday morning drive to, let's say, football with my son. That always feels a bit like, wow, great. How do they know this? And fantastic that we can do this. But at the same time, you feel this a little bit of uncomfort saying, well, are you supposed to know this? And are you following me? The big brother, obviously, from the previous century, that whole thought of thread. How do you think customers will develop, and again, specifically around customer expectation of good service, around the topic of personalization and privacy? Frederick, do you have a view on that?
Well, it's a very interesting question. I would say that, for example, customer expectation right now in Europe, I think that we can place them in 3 different areas. One is personalization, right? According to our research and surveys, an estimated 3 out of 4 end users are more likely to purchase based, from an organization that offers personalized services based on their individual preferences. And in this case, for example, having clean and proper data sets, know the record, history of the customer, and everything related to previous interaction, I think is vital. Also, this idea of, as Tua Leavitt said, being there, having flexible organization with omnichannel capabilities, right? This idea of customers being able to communicate through different channels with companies and everything follows everything like one continuous single conversation. But the last point is exactly what you are just touching base right now, which is this idea of data management, of data security and privacy, right? And for me, I think this is a major role right now. We are seeing an issue for businesses right now. I mean, in the last years, it has become easier and cheaper for businesses to collect and analyze customer data. And although I think this is an important enabler of CX personalization, as we just mentioned, there are also rising concerns about how data is used by companies, and there's a strong desire for secure data management, transparency, and choice, right? Particularly in Europe and in the UK, companies, I think they need to ensure that they also provide the right tools that can match public expectations around security and privacy. In this sense, I'm saying, for example, an interesting, quite innovative movements from some companies, or for example, using cookieless solutions, or trying to make their apps a little bit more, let's say, cookieless and things like that. But yes, there needs to be a proper, I think, balance between this idea of providing personalized services and also ensuring proper data management, privacy, and data security to end users. And this, I think, Europe is heading the race towards this, this idea of privacy and data security. The US, for example, is behind Europe, but I think it's not enough. There's still a constant idea of improvement and working towards creating more secure environment. And something that we need to consider, I think, it's that right now, as most agents are working from home, what do we do with them? I mean, how do we strike, or how do we get high security standards or privacy standards when we cannot control totally agents like before? And I think that's why this idea of maybe taking payments out of agents working from home or automating payments, I think that we should start considering for the future, because we'll have some challenges towards creating a very secure environment if half of our workforce is working from home.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much for that. And for my following questions, which leans really nicely into the working from home topic, let's look at that from two angles. First, from the customer side, and then from the people side. And hopefully we'll have a few minutes left then to talk about the economy and all around customer experience as well. And I really would like to ask this question obviously to panelists, but also to everybody in the audience. And please just drop your answer in the chat. If you see working from home, like I said, very known concept right now. We just saw your numbers as well, Federico, that this is probably going to stay. So maybe in a bit more balance and hybrid forms. I'm sure everybody in the industry will have a similar kind of view on this. And when we all started this, there was a bit of let's say unprofessionalism. Not sure if that's a word, but to it. You could, if you would call your brand, you could hear people in the background, you could hear kids in the background. There was even a message on the IVR. Sorry, I'm working from home. You might hear some noises that you normally not do. You might hear a dog. That was very well accepted. But potentially going forward, the customer experience could change. And the charm of that will be taken away by annoyment. Do we all believe that this is something that we're going to face, that people will expect an absolutely similar experience working from home, or will it continue to be humane? And especially if we think about the previous question about video chat, that potentially you can see in somebody else's living room or a study office. So the working from home and customer experience impact, how will that evolve? Frederic, you're still on screen. Let me start with yourself.
Sure. Well, that's a really interesting question. And it's something that we are all asking ourselves. I think that we'll have some, let's say, period of grace in which we will get used to and in which we will accept certain mistakes in the services, but in the long run, I think businesses will have to find a way to ensure an excellent CX, because in the end, right now CX is becoming one of the key differentiators for businesses, and for that, I think they will need to, for example, implement flexible organizations. They have to implement and invest in proper technologies to enable, for example, visual engagement interactions with customers. They will have to implement proper workforce models and intraday management tools. They will have to enhance the security capabilities, and of their networks. So I think that on the long run, there is some kind of pressure on businesses to increase and enhance on the technology side, and invest in technologies to enhance the customer experience, because in the end, I think that customers will demand excellent customer experience, no matter if the agent is working from home or is working from an office. And but yes, I think there is still room for certain adjustments and mistakes, and that anyway, there's something I think we need to remember, that is that uncertainty and mistakes are part of the customer services, and we need to learn with that idea. I mean, for example, an organization can create different scenarios and can try to understand and create scenarios for every possible customer inquiry. but there's always a level of uncertainty, just like we learned from with COVID, and we have to learn and deal with that uncertainty, and that's part of customer services. That doesn't mean that customer services will worsen the level or that the satisfaction will be low, but we need to be flexible enough to deal with different scenarios, and of course, working from home creates more uncertainty, and we'll have to look the way to deal with that.
Excellent. Thank you. Stuart, do you have a similar view, different view? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And then we'll take a question as well from Andrew in the chat. But let's first go to Stuart with the same question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, our research shows that actually that grace period that customers gave organisations, you know, the fact that they were taking a bit longer to answer the phone, that actually disappeared after about the first 3 or 4 months. And after that, people expected organisations to have sorted this out and got back to delivering great level of service. You know, personally, I don't really mind if there's a dog barking in the background, as long as my call gets answered quickly and the person, you know, that deals with my issue has empathy and understands who I am and what my problems are. So I don't think that the noise in the background or anything like that's the problem. It's as long as the level of service is being delivered, then that's all that matters. What we do have to think about is that when people are working at home, they, you know, the tool sets that they have at their disposal to have information at their fingertips, often they're working on small screens, you know, they don't have the dual screens they have in the contact center. We need to make sure we're designing experiences for agents that allow them to have that right level of information to have, you know, to serve the customer and not navigate their way through lots of different systems, and also have the ability to virtually put their hand up and get some help if they need it, if there's a particularly, you know, complex issue. So there's still a few problems to solve there, but for me, home working is here to stay. These are all solvable problems. It just comes down to design and you know, thinking about the customer journey.
Excellent. Good. Thank you, Stu. Quickly, there's one question from Andrew. Predictions have been made for years that email as a channel will virtually disappear and be replaced by digital channels. How do we do that? So how can we do that without impacting the customer experience and frustrating customers who might have loved email? So how do we get rid of email is the question in a very blunt version.
For me, email is so often a self-inflicted channel. You know, you go to a website and there's a form to fill in, or you send the customer an email and guess what? They'll respond to it. So, you know, simply by nudging the customer towards a messaging channel, asynchronous messaging channel, where they're going to get a quicker response and it probably will give them the information they need. I think, you know, service design is the way to start to shift people's behavior away from email towards more suitable channels. That's my view anyway. Federico?
My view is that today, I think that the best organization is the one that effectively deals with customers' queries and problems. So in the end, the most important thing is solving the issue that the customer is having, no matter how. The idea is getting that issue solved. And of course, providing choice too. I think that if you provide choice to customer, if you provide like good omnichannel capabilities and more choices, that means voice, that means chat, that means email, the better. But I think that, for example, if you're providing a good proper chat or chatbot, you know, option instead of email, I know that some customers will prefer, and it's better to also provide the idea of the option of an email. But as long as you can solve that main issue, I think that shouldn't be a major concern or a major problem for businesses.
The only thing I would add to that is that it is much easier to converse with the customer using technology, using AI, if it's on a chat channel versus an email. You know, you can deliver a level of automation, you can establish intent, you can establish emotion, you can, you know, react much more quickly and often in a more customer-friendly way through the messaging channel. So that's the, you know, that's the advantage I think we have.
Totally agree. I totally agree with that. Yes.
Fantastic. Looking at the time, guys, a couple of minutes left. So can I give you each the maximum 60 seconds to give your most, let's say, spectacular prediction for the mid or the longer term? What are customers going to demand from us when providing a customer experience to continue to have their loyalty and obviously their business, or to score a high NPS if that still exists at that point? So what is your personal prediction for the future? What customers want us to change in the nearby future?
I leave Stu answer that first.
That's a tough one. I think you know, the whole thing about, you know, channels, and I think we're just going to get away from that. You know, every virtual customer experience will be delivered through a screen, and it will include a bit of messaging, a bit of AI, a bit of video if needs be, but it will all be channeled through a screen. And you know, the other recipient of that, the agent in the call center, will just need to have much better tools to be able to quickly share content, to, you know, push information back to the customer, to have information at their fingertips, to deliver a really empathetic experience and understand who the customer is and why they're contacting. And we've got, you know, all of the building blocks are in place there to do that. We just got to bring it all together, and that's what customers are looking for.
I'll give you 60 seconds, Federico, to think about it.
Sure. No, I think that there will be higher expectations on business improving the digital customer journeys. I think that the digital is the key here as well. And with this, I refer to two main things. One is that, I mean, this shift to digital will take part of customer journeys out of the contact center by, for example, reducing the volumes of the contact center, because, you know, many customers will just deal with a chatbot, you know, over a website, and this will reduce a little bit the volumes of the contact center, which might even create a more effective, you know, CX in the end. And also, this, I think, provides an excellent opportunity for contact centers, because, you know, digital provide lots of data about customers, and will use, you know, will capture this real-time insights, you know, into engagement, can improve, for example, decision-making around CX issues. For example, agents can learn what are their customers thinking, you know, what's the history of this customer. And this can actually enhance also the customer experience in the contact center. So I think that customers are expecting for the future a better use of the digital channels, better use, you know, of the digital tools. And also, I think that contact centers and companies in general, we have a great opportunity to actually enhance their customer experience by leveraging the capabilities that digital provides to them, which is basically a lot of data and information.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, both Federico from Argentina, Buenos Aires, and Stu locally, I think from Devon. Thank you very much for, first of all your contributions to discussion today, your opinion, and discussing this, yeah, let's say very interesting, difficult topic, how are our customers going to change over the next couple of years post the pandemic, and how do we prepare ourselves to continue or even improve the customer service that we provide. Thank you very much for your help. We're going to wrap up the session, everybody. Thank you very much for the questions as well, Andy and James and others, for listening. Hope you found it interesting. And we're on now to the next session that starts at 3 o'clock, for which I wish you all the joy and interesting discussion as well. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.
So, good afternoon for what I believe is the... Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the penultimate session of the CCA Summer Seminar. My name is Graham Brown. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for HGS, and I'm delighted to be facilitating this afternoon's panel discussion on the topic of going hybrid. The future of work is here. If any of you are unfamiliar with HGS, then just as by way of introduction, we are a leading global provider of outsourced customer experience solutions. We combine people and technology, or as we trademark, bots and brains, to deliver the right outcomes for businesses, their customers, and our employees. And if you want to find out more, then you can find us at hgs.cx. If you're unfamiliar with yourself, and I have met some of you, I'm sure, at different events that CCA have hosted, but I'm a 25-year veteran of the customer experience marketplace. I've held a variety of operational and senior sales roles across the UK and Europe, and have been part of Team HGS for the last 5 years. I'm joined today by 3 industry heavyweights, and what I would like to do is ask each of them to introduce themselves to the audience and provide a short introduction to their businesses and responsibilities. If I may start by asking Richard Kenny to introduce himself, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Graham. I'm feeling that's a bit harsh. Heavyweight. I know lockdown's been tough on us, but heavyweight, crikey, it's not been that bad, has it? Right, thank you, everyone. So as Graham mentioned, I'm Richard. I am from the Poly marketing team. Globally, I look after all of our call center customers from a marketing perspective. So really understanding how customers use our products, what their plans are for the next few years, and then sort of taking those plans into the product portfolio, the messaging, etc. If you're unfamiliar with Poly, we might be a brand new name to you. We are the people that probably provide the headsets that you're wearing. We came out of the merger of Plantronics and Polycom. So we've got that range of devices going from headsets to speakerphones to phones and right through to video cameras now as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Richard. And if I could ask David to introduce himself next, please.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So David Cousins. I head up both go-to-market and sales for Twilio's contact center propositions for everything pretty much outside of the Americas. Again, similar, I've been in contact center CX since the age of 19, which may look like it was perhaps 2 or 3 years ago. It's been nearer 24 years. Twilio, for those that don't know Twilio, so we run a global platform as a service, essentially enabling people to create the contact center that they want, rather than the contact center that everybody designs on your behalf, used by people like Uber, Deliveroo, Netflix, Airbnb, you name it. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and thanks for the opportunity for the introduction.
Excellent. Thank you, David. And Joao, by no means last, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. I've never been called a heavyweight before, too, so I was a bit intimidated with that. So my name is João Gonzalez. I'm the head of international global accounts for EMEA in GoContact. GoContact is a Portuguese company. We also provide a contact center as a service solution, omnichannel, with a strong emphasis also on self-service and AI. I've been selling voice solutions in the last 20 years, contact center solutions for more than I would like to mention. I started, my first job was a PBX pre-sales engineer, and I've been working in several roles, but all related to the industry for my entire professional life.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Joao. And I will change reference to heavyweights to superstars, or like you prefer. Okay, so I'll name you Superstar 1, 2, and 3. So thanks very much for those introductions, and we'll get to hear a lot more from the 3 of you over the next 50 or so minutes. Just so the audience is aware, this is a panel discussion. So I have got a number of questions that I'll be asking to Richard, David and Joao, but I will leave some time at the end. So should anybody have any questions at the end, then by all means put them in the chat window and I will try to get to them. I think many of you that are joining us today will be familiar with the work that's already been undertaken by CCA and the work to understand the future way of working. I think many of you will have participated in the customer service and CX future scenarios workshops that's been run by Anne-Marie and her team since the start of the year. As the title suggests, these workshops enable participants to share their thoughts on what the future of CX looks like from a customer, employee and business perspective. I think over the last couple of days, we've heard from various other people and businesses around what the future has entailed for us. During today's panel discussion, we're going to build on one of the streams that was covered in the CX future scenarios. And it generated a lot of interest from the participants, which was entitled "The World of Work is Changing." And during this session, it was discussed the ways in which businesses and their employees were adapting to what was referred to as the new normal. Since that session was held back in April, I think if anybody looks at the news, we'll have seen more and more businesses coming out and making statements regarding their future operating models. To call some of those out, and there's a huge list, but I'll only pick out a few here to share with you. Lloyds Banking Group came out and said that they expected to reduce commercial office space by 20% over the next 18 months. HSBC came out and said something similar, but they said it was going to reduce by 40% as more and more people chose to work from home rather than in the office. Aviva came out and made a similar statement regarding their offices across the UK. And I've got a quote here from them that I thought could be quite interesting. The way we use our office space is changing. Time shared between office and home will depend on circumstances and preferences. Their plan is to combine or reduce office space with the intention to invest in its sites and provide a more vibrant, inspiring and flexible workspace. And I think there's been some of that theme coming out over the last 2 days as well. Interestingly, not everybody has seen this as utopia. Not everybody has bought into home working. I'll use the example of Goldman Sachs. Their boss, David Solomon, came out and rejected remote working as the new normal, labelled it an aberration. And instead he said, I think for a business like ours, which is innovative, collaborative, apprenticeship culture, this is not ideal for us. And it's not a new normal. It's an aberration that we're going to correct as soon as possible. Very, very strong words from the head of Goldman Sachs. And if you read the news and have seen their name in there, I think their junior bankers might disagree with some of his sentiment there, but I won't dwell on that just in case there is anybody from Goldman Sachs in the audience today. Continuing on with the theme though, in terms of what we are witnessing in the marketplace, there was a recent survey undertaken by the London Chamber of Commerce. They reached out to approximately 520 businesses and almost half of those businesses said they expect work to continue from home for at least 5 days or up to 5 days a week after the pandemic finishes, which will provide a very interesting dynamic, I think, back in the City of London as more and more office space frees up. LinkedIn did some similar research and found that 2/3 of UK workers said their employer expecting them to return to the office, with Mondays and Tuesdays set to be the busiest office days. But almost half said they wanted to split their time between home and the office. A quote from their UK country manager, Janine Chamberlain, said, hybrid working will also help open up jobs to people who may have previously been locked out of them due to location, disability or caregiving responsibilities, which I thought was very, very interesting, especially when I think about my colleagues at HGS, because we very much subscribe to the new way of thinking. And we did a poll across our UK workforce. It is approximately 2,500 strong. And over 95% wanted to remain working from home or adopt some form of hybrid working, which to a certain extent was quite lucky because we'd already started making tracks to introduce a hybrid operating model across our business, creating what we refer to as the HGS Work Cloud, which will allow people to work 1 day a week in the office and 4 days a week at home. And we're changing all of our contact center environments into what we're now referring to as engagement hubs. So rather than being a place just to work, they're going to be split 50-50 between work and collaboration, which we're really, really excited about. So look, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to start to pass over to my panel in just a moment. But you know, on the back of all of this opportunity and the expectations of employees to be able to continue a great work-life balance, there was something that came as a little bit of a red flag, I think, earlier this week, and it came from the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. And they made the statement that about 6 million professional jobs in the UK could be done from anywhere, risk being outsourced to other countries. It's warned that the mass experiment with remote working means that companies concerned about cost could decide to keep just core staff needed for in-person collaboration and decision-making. Okay, very, very interesting, but we've got to remember Tony Blair also said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and that turned out to be not correct either. But with that said, I'd like to start to reintroduce the panel. And if I could start with David, based on your experience, do you believe hybrid working is here to stay? And what will the people element of future working look like?
Yeah, I mean, in short, absolutely. Again, you know, similar research that we've done, and I only look at our customer base, would suggest that, you know, we all know for the past 16 months that over 90% of advisors have worked from home, and it's worked. I mean, I'm in my converted garage right now. I haven't met probably 50% of my colleagues that have been hired in the past 15 months, and it works incredibly well. About 40% of the advisors that we spoke to said that their organisation will encourage them to work at home at some point. And I think about 70% suggested that they would like the flexibility to work at home at least some of the time. You know, I only look at my next door neighbours. One works for a bank and one works for the job centre, and they both work from home, and they have the opportunity to go into the office into Manchester on occasion. But actually, seeing how they juggle childcare and seeing how they juggle other things, this has just opened up a whole raft of flexibility. So I think, you know, the jury's out, it works well. I wouldn't quite go as far as aberration. But in terms of, you know, what does the sort of future hold from a people perspective, I think it's, to your point, actually, it's flexibility. We've got a much broader catchment. You know, I've lived in the Northwest most of my adult life. I've worked in the CX industry for that same length of time, and you know the two go hand in hand because that's where the hubs are. The Northwest, the Northeast, 6% of Scottish population work within the CX industry. I think now we've got a catchment that's much broader than that across the country. Interestingly, to your point, you know, all Twilio folks are allowed to work anywhere for 3 weeks, up to 3 weeks. So I could arguably, if we could travel, go on holiday somewhere and work for 3 weeks from, you know, Spain, Portugal, you name it. So again, that degree of flexibility means that I get a lot more life choice, as does my team. So in short, absolutely, I think this is, you know, the way to go. And people have recognized that, you know, human beings like the fact that they don't have to spend a lot of time traveling in the morning, the expense that goes with that. They can get up and do the work that they want to be able to do. Clearly, there's challenges with that. And I think that's, you know, the opportunity that we need to address now.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, David. Really interesting points that you make there. I'd just like to maybe just open it up to Richard as well here, just to get your view on this. And also maybe just to pose the question around the type of roles as well, because, you know, it's all very well us sitting here as managers and senior managers within organizations, but within the CX space, there's a lot of people that are at the front line that perhaps relatively junior. And do you think the same opportunities will be afforded to them?
Well, yes, hybrid working's here to stay, but no, I don't think we should make it a forced way of working for our people. As you point out, customer service is the first step on the journey in a company for many people. And I bet you, without telling you, there's quite a chunk of your workforce that are actually sofa surfing at the moment. And, you know, that's the sort of the lowest level. They're not going to be able to work from home. The people who are on that next stage up, they're, you know, sharing a house. They don't want to be working from home if they're fighting for the kitchen table first thing in the morning and trying to find the best space in the house that isn't noisy. So one of the big things that I talk about is that, yes, hybrid working is a really good solution, but it's got to be a personal choice. If you want to come into the office, we've got to make that space for you to come into that office. And we're getting a lot of people actually say we want to work in these third spaces, the coffee shops, etc. I don't think that's feasible, frankly. I think that's a security nightmare for most call centers. But what people are looking for is a nice office space, something to draw them in. They want maybe a good coffee shop that's better than what they've got at home. a good place to get lunch that's better than what they've got at home. So actually, you know what, it's down to us as employers to create those office experiences. If we want to be a Goldman Sachs and say people must come into the office, well, actually, you know what, make your offices good. I'm not going to come in. I'm going to go to another company if you can't make that office experience good for me. So I think that, yeah, it's definitely here to stay, but we've got to start treating our people as individuals here and saying, okay, you know what, one size doesn't fit all across the call center. We've got to give you choices as to where you work and how you work.
Lovely. And I think I've got a title for a new book, Homeworking, Fighting for the Kitchen Table. Hopefully you don't mind if I use that. Joao, you might have a slightly different perspective being on the continent. Are you experiencing the same things in Portugal and any of the other markets that you're working in?
Yeah, pretty much. We've had most of the people now working in direct customer contact, working from home. And a lot of companies, ours included, has basically changed the way that they will go on forward, and they will remain on this hybrid model where you can go to the office if you choose, but you can also work from home. I think the model has its challenges, especially for new hires, but it is definitely the way forward. And I'm thinking contact centers and the real estate that they pay for. I'm thinking agent retention, where the commute to work is probably one of the factors that causes more rotation. I spent some years in Latin America working the contact center there, and it was a major issue. They had 15-20% a month agent rotation, and agents would change jobs just because the commute would be shorter in the new job, because they basically get paid the same everywhere. So it could be a critical factor for contact centers. But I also agree with Richard when he says it's not for everybody. No, it's not. Some people don't have the environment or the space in their houses to work from home. It will get better because kids have gotten back to school. So houses have been remodeled. I know IKEA is making a lot of money selling home furniture in the last year or so. I myself have been a customer there, but it's a mix. It's mixed. It's here to stay. Actually, it's been very common in countries like the US for many years now. But for us Europeans, I think it's here to stay. It will require adjustment. It will require a change of perspective in some things, but it's definitely the future.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Joao. And I want to go back to Richard, actually, in terms of something that you were talking about there around the positives of the new way of working, the hybrid operating, but also some of the negatives. So, with this displacement of work, if you like, could it be detrimental to employees? Are we at risk potentially of seeing 6 million jobs leave the country because home working has been so successful and it can be done anywhere? Or is it going to create a lot of new opportunities for employees?
It really depends on the culture of your company. If you are not fully invested in customer service, if it's not a priority for you, you're going to chase the lowest cost possible. And those jobs that you probably got in the UK will disappear off to initially Eastern Europe and then possibly the Far East. So for employers, employees in that particular area, yeah, it's going to be a lowest common denominator approach. What you lose there is that culture and that sort of that connection between the employee and where the customers are based, and you lose the ability to provide a good experience. But where I kind of see hopefully most companies going, especially the sort of people that are listening in today, is that actually we're going to open this up to people. I've done quite a few conversations with the NTI in the US, the National Telecommuting Institute, that look at getting disabled people back into the workforce. And this widespread acceptance of home working has suddenly opened up that market to people that can't commute, that can't get into an office. So there's this huge area of a workforce that we've suddenly opened it up to. And also, if you kind of think of it as a second benefit as well, is that part-time working, for example, has been really difficult if you've had to come into the office. This whole split shifts approach, commuting in the morning or in the evening. Again, if we've got people that only want to work part-time, we've made it easier for those people to get into the workforce. So I think if you're a positive culture company, looking after your employees, trying to find the best customer experience, you've now got the whole of the UK as an untapped workforce available to you. You've got the ability to diversify your workforce as much as you want to see fit as well. So I think for those companies that are looking for it, this is a really good opportunity.
Excellent, thank you for that. And just thinking through something that was discussed on one of the earlier sessions, we were talking about the digital innovation that's come through at the same time. So as much as we have, as all businesses pivoted into home working, organisations have also embraced digital change as well and tried to promote as much self-serve as possible as well. So with all of that innovation, I'm gonna position this question to Joao, if you don't mind. You know, with all of the technology innovation that's been undertaken over the last 15 months, and the fact that that's removed a lot of the noise, the low-hanging fruit that exists within the customer service domain, do you think it's going to change the dynamic of the contact centre? Are we going to create more specialist roles? Are we going to see the end of mass recruitment and large-scale contact centres?
Definitely yes, mostly because of what's been happening with AI. I think the agents in contact centers are moving up on the scale of values, on their level of engagement in what the company is doing, mainly because AI will take over not their entire jobs, but probably the most repetitive part of their jobs. And AI is really the area that has been going through a lot of changes in the last couple of years. That on one side. On the other side, if you have a remote workforce, you will benefit, obviously, more experienced people. So older guys like ourselves or myself can have a little bit more opportunities because of that. In general, I would say technology has helped this process, not with the exception of AI, and obviously with the exception of working remotely, which is something that is possible, much more than things that you can do now that you couldn't do before. It is how easy can you do them now? It's mostly that. I think we've seen an explosion of cloud offerings, which for us, it wasn't good because we were already had that offer, an explosion of quality management, e-learning. It's now easier for companies, and easier, I mean, less expensive, less time consuming, less resource consuming, less infrastructure meddling. It's now easier to go into to invest in those technologies that you really need to handle this new reality.
So you've seen a lot more competition then over the last 15 months as organizations.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Technology.
I think all technology providers either were already in the cloud and they gained more customers, or had to, become cloud providers, and they're now trying to steal customers away from us again. But I think that affects everybody. I've always been in a competitive world, and you must make the best of it.
Absolutely. There's always going to be competition, but hopefully at the same time as the competition increases, the market size increases, so you don't see your slice of the pie reduce. I am going to ask in a moment David to come in as well and comment on that as well, because I think he'll have an opinion on what you've just said there, Joao. But before I do, we have got a poll that we wanted to run with you as well. And this is specifically on specialist roles. So it'd be loved to get the feedback from the audience as to whether or not you think we'll require more specialist roles in the future. So Pauline has just put that up on screen. If you could all vote now, it would be appreciated. And then David, as you come back, perhaps you could also make some comments based on the results that we're seeing as well from this poll.
Yeah, sure.
We've not done this before, so I don't know how long this is going to take. Right, David, over to you.
I mean, I could just simply agree, couldn't I? Or be really pedantic and say no, but I think, I am in agreement with that. And again, I think it's back to what Richard was saying. I mean, now we've got more catchment for sure. I think specialism's a requirement in a lot of cases. Again, if we've got quite a close-knit sort of community and hubs, then of course, specialism will often much more difficult. But certainly, broadening and understanding. And I think actually at the point, as you said at the very outset, we did it, it worked, we got everybody at home. We're now at a point in refining how that might work moving forward, and understanding actually what's the future of the customer journey and the customer experience moving forward as well. You know, you introduce things like AI, you introduce things like automation, then of course inherently you're left with a lot more complexity in some of the interactions that need to be dealt with by a human being, and therefore, you know, speciality sort of comes to the fore. And I have a humble belonging, I suppose. You know, my working career started in the contact center, and therefore, you know, I've been the advisor, I've been the team lead, and very much feel, and I know we've talked about this at the CCA before, but feel that, you know, there is a professionalism in an advisor, and it's not just anymore a job to do while studying or a job to do elsewhere. So actually having specialism will also open up roles for people that will want to sort of, again, continue the career that we've all been in at some stage in our life. So specialism, I think, is definitely here to stay. It's how we, I guess, broaden that specialism and collaborate potentially in an environment that isn't an office and isn't a contact center of old. It will be
Graham, I'm going to sound a note of caution on those poll results. I think, you know, with AI self-service taking more and more of the simple questions, it seems a nice easy route to sort of push employees into specialist roles. But what we run the risk of doing is it making it much more difficult for our customer to find that specialism. You know, at the moment, if you've got one phone number, you come through to a team of generalists, they're able to answer the question. What do you do now? Do you have multiple phone numbers? Do you go back to the old days of 6x6 IVRs where it was a nightmare to try and get to somebody? Or do we have sort of some better front end that enables you to find that exact specialist that you're looking for? Because otherwise, if we train people up to be a specialist and a call comes through to them, it might be the wrong thing for them. They might spend 50% of their time on calls, 50% of the time trying to find the right specialist within the organization. So we can't just create this pool of hyper specialists on their own without changing everything else around them to make it easy to find the right specialist.
I completely agree with you, Richard. I think there is clearly a risk there of creating silos and that being at the detriment to the customer experience. Again, I think on the earlier session that we had today, there was a conversation or a comment regarding the ability to seamlessly pivot out of a technology loop into a live agent interaction. I think it's probably there that's the critical piece here, Richard, based on what you've just said there. So, you know, a consumer goes through a journey, but when the technology cannot support them and give them the outcome they look for, and it needs to go into a live agent interaction, how do we make sure that it goes to the right individual with the right set of skills that's going to be able to deal with that problem and understand the journey they've already been on? And yeah, I think that's a question that a lot of organizations are looking at today. And I think we've probably got quite a few examples amongst ourselves of organizations that don't do that well. And I'm going to hold myself back by saying anything, but if you look at my LinkedIn feed, you might see a few names on there. So look, thank you both for your comments there. If I may continue on with yourself there, Richard, as well. You know, technology has clearly played a critical role as we enter into this new way of working, the hybrid way of working. And, you know, if I go back 10 years, technology was always an enabler. Today it is seen very much as a driver. How are we going to maintain the humanity in hybrid? You know, how are we going to keep the people engaged? How are we going to make it a job that just doesn't feel that they are polishing a robot?
Do you want me to get on my soapbox here?
If you've got one, then by all means.
Stop calling them agents, for goodness sake, all right? If we want to be talking about humanity, these are people, these are our advisors, they're our employees, they're our workforce. You know, I don't want to denigrate the previous session. You know, Stuart and Peter did a good job there, but you know, talking about live agents and human agents made me feel like kind of there wasn't much of a dividing line between our technology and our people. And I've always had that feeling that we have the wrong title for people. And it starts from that point. So if we want to, you know, employ people, trust those people. If they're good enough to be put in front of customers, trust them. Okay. Nobody tells me what to do on a security briefing. Nobody tells me how to interact when I do these sort of sessions because they trust me. Why don't we do the same thing for our people? That for me is putting the humanity back into hybrid working, is treating people as individuals. If they're good enough to come and work for you and be in front of your best asset, which is always your customers, trust them to do that. Don't take things away from their role, like taking payments away from them when they're at home, or giving them strict instructions on how to behave when they're on video chats. Hire the right people, trust them to do the job. That puts the humanity back in those people.
Very passionate. I like it. Joao, David, any additions you'd like to make there?
Yeah, I would probably add, when we talk about specialist roles, going back a little bit, but you know, in line with what Richard has said, it's not so much you are specialists, it's that you are entering on the customer journey a little further ahead on the needs scale. So you will probably not handle that many repetitive calls. You will enter either because the customer has reached the point that, you know, automation can't help him anymore, or that's probably more the case, you are being put in touch with customers that do not like self-service, that will probably more difficult customers. So it's not as much that you have new skills, but you are higher up on the skill level where you are. And that is probably the most critical question, I think.
So that may actually take me nicely onto my next question, actually. And it is for you, Joao, and I'm going to quote Go Connect website, if I may. It says on there, if you want to reduce technological complexity in your contact center operation and boost control, performance and efficiency, you came to the right place. Okay.
Okay.
With that
you've
in
done your
mind,
homework.
you know, in addition to providing the ability to work from home, how has your technology helped to facilitate hybrid working and keep the advisors connected and feeling part of the brand that they represent?
Okay, there are several things we do that have contributed for us to have especially a lot of success in these pandemic years. Probably one of the most, well, first and foremost, the platform in itself, it is a networking platform where you can chat and interact with all your, you know, colleagues. So it's not just the contact center solution, it's also the, you know, the backbone of the communication solution in the office. Second, and that has to do with the reduction of complexity, we can provide a single customer view. You can actually look up the entire customer journey, present and past, within our platform, which makes it easy for companies to displace their agents at home because they no longer need, well, in most cases, no longer need access to the entire information system of the company. So that's probably one of the most critical reasons. Also, when we talk about reducing complexity, we basically talk about being able to have your own team, and I'm talking your own team as your customer team, perform most of the programming and configuring that you need to do on your platform. So it makes it much easier for you to change, to manage, to measure, and to adjust than when you are fully dependent on a provider that's probably, you know, dealing with a lot of service calls and a lot of customers because, you know, everybody is doing the same thing. So that probably has been our greatest benefits for our customer base in the last year or so. We've tried to make as much use of that as possible. We've been getting obviously a lot of requests, giving a lot of attention to monitoring, quality management, e-learning. E-learning has become a major investment within GoContact for customers to be able to train their agents without having them displaced to the office. And dashboards, real-time reports, anything that has to do with the fact that you now have to manage the group of people that work for you. If you're a supervisor and you're not looking at them, you have to really look at what they're doing, know what they're doing, being able to help them, and obviously to measure them.
And if I may just follow on from that as well, we talk about kind of the control and making sure they're doing the right things at the right time. How are we replicating the social elements of working within an office? You know, it's very easy when you're sitting with a team and you can have a conversation and you've got, you know, visuals all around you reinforcing the brand and the culture and all of those good things, and you can socialize post work. All of those things have gone. So how is technology helping there as well to create, I suppose, the risk of disenfranchisement by that employee base?
Excellent question. Well, first and foremost, you need to give the agents and the supervisors the same experience, whether they're working from home or in the office. Obviously, when you're home, you don't have the visual and also the audio control of what your guys are doing. You lose that. That's a definite fact that cannot be hidden. You can measure, you can listen to calls, you have to invest more in post-call customer satisfaction inquiries to make sure that the calls are being handled properly. But you will never have the same level of engagement. But on the other hand, if your contact center is too big, and if your supervisors have to handle a lot of agents, they will probably not have the control that they actually think they have over their groups. So it's it's a push and pull situation. You do have to make sure that you are measuring, make sure that you are supporting, coaching the people that work for you, training them properly, measuring them, and making sure that they perform as you want, but also being considerate of the fact that they're working unattended for most of the time.
Makes sense. So what we're saying there is we need the measurement because we perhaps lose some of the control, but we can't lose sight of the fact they're human beings and we need to deal with them as such and create an environment that they feel respected and looked after and understood.
Definitely.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I've got another poll question that's going to come up, but I'm just going to call David back into the conversation, if I may. My belief, and I'm sure that you will support this, David, is that technology has really helped us over the last 15 plus months. If it wasn't for cloud-based technology and the ability to pivot so quickly, I think there would be a lot of organizations that would really have struggled. Do you feel that most of the organizations you work with see you and the sector you work in as being an enabler and helping them to navigate through this crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think agility has been key. Nobody could have predicted this need to send people home. We found organizations of 1,100 users being home within 6, 7, 8, 9 days, web chat being up and running in some cases in less than 22 hours. Again, it was through necessity, and these weren't necessarily the most polished solutions ever, because actually necessity bore out the need to do something quickly. And in a lot of cases, I think the shortage of laptops in the UK was a bigger issue than using a cloud platform to deliver contact back into a home working environment. I think just a couple of points on that. I mean, absolutely agree with Richard. I think empowerment is really important. Absolutely agree with Joe in terms of having the tools and making sure that there's some consistency in that. And that's what we're starting to now see. The sort of speed bit, the getting all the things working within that environment, within a Chrome browser, a laptop are kind of key. But now it's the refinement of that. And that comes down to knowledge and information and actually the benefits of hybrid, in the sense that if I have the opportunity to go into the office for a coaching session and a one-to-one and some training immersion and some camaraderie, but at the same time I can take that away with me, knowing that the tools that I've got are useful and consolidated. I mean, look, we're still in a world even now where most organizations have got 5, 6, 7, 8 applications that an individual has to use on a regular basis. And I'm now in a world potentially where I can't put my hand up and my supervisor that would normally sit at the bank of desks on the end can come and give me a hand. So we've got to rationalize that workspace, because let's be honest, and I'm an uber nerd, as you might be able to see behind me, we're surrounded by tech at home. And therefore, there's now an expectation that, the job that we do also considers that, and obviously considers the information that I might need to be able to do my job properly. But it is about empowerment, I think, and it's about addressing that need now that the speed and agility bit has been done. And I think we've all proven that. Again, a recent survey, say recent, probably about 6 months old now, suggested that through necessity, contact center tech has moved forward by about 6 years in the space of the 15 months that we've all been going through. So I think that's been the proving ground. It's now an opportunity to refine it.
That is a lovely segue into our second and final poll question as well, I think. So, Pauline, you're already on cue. Yes. Will technology act as an enabler or an obstacle to implementing a new operating model post-pandemic? And if you put obstacle, then Richard, Joao and David are both going to, or all three are going to contact you after today's session. And while people are voting, just to let you know, we are starting to get some comments through on the chat. So I'm trying to keep this all going. We'll leave a few minutes at the end of today's session to try and address some of the questions that are coming through. But Bernard Mooney wanted to say, well said to Richard, I think based on his support and protection of our advisors. Okay, let's see if we've got the results through. Okay, 7. One person. That one person's going to get a lot of phone calls, I think, over the coming weeks. But that's interesting. David, again, if you want to comment on those, please feel free.
Yeah, no, I love that. The fact that that's the weighted answer, and you know, technology is the enabler in every sort of sense of the word. I only look back at, you know, again, some of the organisations that we support, like Just Eat and Deliveroo and QVC, all people that were innately busy, and all of a sudden, you know, we all used them pretty much every other day during lockdown because we had to. It absolutely enabled a lifestyle and filled a gap in that regard. I think, you know, it's choice as well. We've always, prior to this, I mean, 70% of the contact center market from a technology perspective was still very much on premise. And I think that was the first challenge that everybody faced was, how do I now get this bit of plastic to work in someone's house or someone's kitchen table or whatever that might be? And technology obviously came in and resolved that in most cases. And people found some amazing and weird and wonderful ways of addressing that. But, you know, tech is the enabler in every other sort of guise of the world. So why not for the CX industry? So I'm glad everybody agrees.
Everybody bar one.
Everybody bar one.
Excellent. Okay. Look, I'm conscious of the time. We're 15 minutes to the top of the hour. So, and I did say I wanted to leave some time at the end for questions to the panel. I'm not going to stop just here. I just want to just bring something in and then let you all have a few closing words to the audience. Again, I love bringing in insight from third-party sources, and there was something shared by Bloomberg last week that spoke about the number of businesses that expect people to be home working in the future. And it was 46% of businesses expected staff to work at least 4 to 5 days a week from home, which I thought was very, very interesting. Now, when I look at, you know, the stats when this was broken down, they were talking about they expected to see people back in the office, you know, maybe, you know, 9% 1 day a week, 20% 2 days a week, 20% 3 days a week. Sorry, the other way around, working from home, 9% 1 day a week, 20% 2 days a week, 20% 3 days a week, 11% 4 days a week. So, I mean, if we add all of that together, what does that give us? 40, 51, 60% of all businesses expect their staff to be working at home for at least, you know, a day or two a week. And we're very much in the same camp. You know, our assumption here is that, you know, our employees are going to be working 4 days a week at home, albeit that was perhaps one of the less popular choices when I look at the research. But I'm interested in the views of the three of you here in terms of what you think that optimal balance will look like moving forward. We've all said hybrid is here to stay. What is it going to look like? Is it 1 day a week at home, or is it 4 days a week at home? And how can technology and how can your businesses help to deliver a consistent experience? And not just for the employee, but also for the customers that they support. And I'll ask Richard to go first, and then I'll follow through with Joao and David.
All right, I'm going to take you off at a little tangent here, Graham. Let's not make hybrid working a distraction. Okay, we've all said it's going to be here. We've all got a roughly good idea of how to do it, but it's solving an internal problem. It's not going to benefit the customer. What we really need to do is quickly accept hybrid working and go back to solving the problems that our customers want. They want to know how to get hold of us through whatever channels, and for that interaction to be a really good experience. And part of that might be a quick experience, part of it might be an emotional experience, etc. But let's not make hybrid working a distraction that takes us away from focusing on the customer experience.
Thank you for that. Joao, do you want to go next, and do you want to comment on anything Rich has just said there?
No, it's an excellent point what Rich has said. True. We're talking about the way we work, and we should be worried with the way that we serve our customers. So the way we work is more how we manage our companies internally, how we reduce costs without sacrificing productivity, how we reach broader sales force, how we improve employee satisfaction because we allow them to, lose less time on commutes. I think ideally, if any CEO in the world would prefer to have their employees close at hand, it is what it is, and people of of all generations have been raised on the principle that you have to look at what your guys are doing to make sure that they're doing the right work and in the right amount. But the fact is that technology changes, and situations like the one the world is going through force the usage of technology, because this is nothing new. We've had the ability to work from home for some years now. It was probably more expensive than it is now, more difficult to implement. CEOs and directors would probably, enter into a panic state because of that, but it has been possible. It has been possible for a lot of years. We just, circumstances change that. And many companies are looking at their savings, at their potential savings, at the fact, and I'm sure that, I'm not sure for all companies, but I'm sure that for IT companies, like the ones in this panel, the productivity has increased. I think most people are putting in more hours now that they work from home than they used to put before. Traffic stopped being an excuse and a deterrent. So there's a lot of good things to take from that. Probably in the contact center environment, it's probably one of the most tricky ones, because of the fact that your workforce is, for the most of it, a little bit less experienced than what you would like. So that's the challenge. But each company knows what's best for them. And I think the future will bring us, we will find companies probably degrading their customer service because most of their guys are working from home. You will have companies improving the customer service because they're doing it the right way. And you will have customers having difficulties in hiring people because they don't provide home working. That's something that's probably not going to go back. After this, and especially after my son's generation has been looking at this and they're now entering the job market. Well, my son's going to be a doctor, so will definitely not be working from home, but I'm talking about the generation. They will probably not accept if you have to go to the office every day of the week. They'll probably don't want that. So it's something we have to take into consideration.
I think you'll find your son might well be working from home.
As a doctor, I'm not sure.
In modern medicine, I think he may well be working in an office and never need to touch or feel any of his patients ever again. Hopefully that won't be the case, but you never know. And David, can I ask you just to maybe close off this conversation, and I'll just pick up any of the questions that are outstanding from the audience?
Yeah, great. I mean, I think, it's been a really good point. I mean, hybrid working is a kind of byproduct, a logistical challenge that we had to address, and therefore it sort of opened everybody's eyes up to, future possibilities. But actually, to the point from the gents, there's no forgetting the other work that's gone into this through the past 15 months. Demands for organizations have actually increased in a lot of cases. The number of people available is reduced through furlough schemes. So people have had to find really innovative ways of just, again, servicing customers in their time of need, be that holiday refunds, be that contact and trace and making sure that we're trusted, be that, other things that have happened within that period of time, and just changing the way that we do business. So, digital channels have gone up. People have had more opportunity to be innovative anyway, as well as now looking at, desktop environments and looking at the information that we deliver to people, because we can no longer send 1,001 Excel spreadsheets around the business every day in the hope that people will understand them. All of that has absolutely changed. And yes, the ideal is you get some choice around going to the office, or you get some choice around staying at home. And I agree, I think there will start to be an expectation that home working is part of my contract, and Twilio in particular have got, you know, new home working guidelines that have been evolved over the past sort of 15 months, which will continue to stay because productivity for sure has increased. So I think, you know, absolutely, you know, hybrid working is here. We can call it what we will, but we've also got to remember the amazing achievements that people have made by just keeping the lights on for the past fairly decent, significant period of time.
Absolutely. I think we most definitely should celebrate the successes as they were during an incredibly difficult period. But we now need to look for the future and make sure we're doing the right things by our employees and by our customers as well. Couldn't agree more with you there. Thank you for that, David. Now, just looking, we've got a few minutes left. I did say we'd take questions from the floor. There has been one that's been sitting in the chat window for a little while, not necessarily specific to hybrid working, but one that I think is an interesting question. Do you think that given the cyber attacks and cloud issue recently relating to news feeds, that companies may look at what risk may be associated with cloud-based technologies? And I look at, well, actually, David, it might be a good one for you to take at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's absolutely, you know, a duty of care. There's absolutely security implications that need to be considered so that, again, we build trust with people. I mean, I think back to, you know, the contact and trace use case that was literally born overnight, never seen before, and the mere fact that everything in this world seemingly provides an opportunity for nefarious individuals to take advantage of services and misinformation that took place as part of that. You know, we went a long ways to producing and ensuring with governing bodies throughout Europe, throughout the world, that our numbers, for example, were trusted. So if you got a message that you'd been in close proximity, you knew full well that it came from a trusted source rather than from, you know, an individual that's clearly trying to make some money out of you. So yeah, I mean, I think it will highlight a need for some due diligence, but at the same time, particularly anybody that sits within the cloud has a duty to ensure that data is secure and data is, you know, and remains to be so, and no secure sensitive data, you know, can make its way out, but also it's that trust in the way that those things are delivered so that your recipient, your customer knows full well that this communication is coming from you and aren't just simply confused by misinformation, which I think we've all seen far too much of again this past few months in and around that. So yeah, I agree that there will be a little bit of a risk in the sense that people's eyes will be open to that, but I don't think the message changes in the sense that we've all gone a long ways to make sure that cloud works and cloud is secure and cloud is trusted.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, David. I don't know if there's any other questions from the audience. If there are, please put it into the chat window. I'll give it 30 seconds, see if anything else comes through. If it doesn't, I will close things off. Like we should have the countdown clock ticking through right now, but I won't make the noise. I want to make the noise, but I'm not going to make the noise. Okay, so look, I think we'll leave it there. What's left for me to say is, first and foremost, thank you to Richard, Joao, and David. Appreciate your time, appreciate your thoughts, appreciate your insight, appreciate your passion. I hope that everybody who has been listening in today and watching has found the session enjoyable, interesting, newsworthy. Please get it out on Twitter and LinkedIn if you've heard some interesting news bites that you'd like to share. I think from my perspective, I was trying to take some notes as we were talking, but it was very difficult to listen and write. I'm not very good at multitasking, but just some of the things that I want to just reiterate. Fighting for the kitchen table. I've taken that. That's the name of my book. Please, nobody else use that. I think there are clearly going to be pros for employees as we move into the new way of working. And I think it's going to open up the inclusivity, if you like, and access for roles to a variety of people from all different parts of the UK and all different socio-economic demographics. We're going to see roles move up the value chain, which I hope actually will lead to increases in salary that come through as well, because I think that's important as well to get the rewards for the work that you do. word of caution on specialism. You know, we need to make sure that we have the right people available to support the customers at the time that they're needed. Measurement is critical in the new way of working, but we shouldn't be at the detriment to the human touch. And based on the last comment that Richard made, hybrid working is part of the solution, but it's not the solution to great CX. And with that said, I want to say thanks again to everybody that's been involved. And I'm going to hand back over now to Anne-Marie and the team to close out this year's CCA Summer Convention.